Welcome, folks. I am Jaby Koay, joined by ACHARA KIRK.
Hello.
We are talking about Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. This is going to be a completely non-spoiler review.
That's right.
No plot twist whatsoever, no major story beats revealed. The only story thing I'm going to mention right now is the one-liner from IMDb. And if you can't handle that, then get your ass out of the kitchen. You don't belong there anyway. The first thing we'll start with is whether or not we recommend this movie. And I have a yes and a no, depending on who you are. If you're someone who hasn't been keeping up with the new films or any Star Wars movies whatsoever, and you got a group of pals who are gonna go watch the movie and they're like, hey, Chris, you should come too. You should be like, no, I'm gonna pass because Jaby Koay says I'm not gonna enjoy the experience.
You're gonna have a hard time because there's a lot going on. It's wrapping up the previous 8 movies.
But if you're a casual viewer, I would say definitely go watch it. If you're a hardcore viewer, I don't think that my opinion of whether or not you should watch it would sway you, but yes, go watch it. The IMDb one-liner here, it says, the surviving resistance faces the First Order once more in the final chapter of the Skywalker saga. Let's go into general feelings about it. For me, the first hour watching it, my feeling was, wow, this is the best fan film ever made of Star Wars. That was my feeling watching it, honestly, because it's not structured like a Star Wars film. It doesn't have the same rhythms of your usual Star Wars film. The first hour moves really fast, like an action movie.
Yeah,
and
like an action movie comedy.
And then after that first hour, hour 15, I'm not exactly sure where that break stops, that break in momentum stops. Once that break hits, I actually enjoyed the film a lot more because it felt more like Star Wars again. Overall, I enjoyed the film and I do plan to go back and watch it again, but I don't feel as strongly about going back and watching it as I have in the past with other Star Wars movies, including Force Awakens, which I've been very vocal about my feelings on, that being, I thought it was good, it was enjoyable, it was a serviceable Star Wars film, but I wasn't blown away. I was more relieved than anything else that it wasn't terrible. That was the thing that made me happy. Last Jedi, apparently I loved it. And because I went back and watched my review of it just to make sure I'm consistent, and I'm actually inconsistent with my feelings about Last Jedi because I loved it when I watched it, but I haven't had the compulsion to go back and watch it again. And if I truly loved it, I should have wanted to go back and watch it again.
It was fun when it was happening.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of my feeling about this movie as well. I had a great time. I went through all the emotions. I was laughing, I was crying, I was excited.
I cried twice.
Yeah, it was really, really good fun. Mm-hmm. But when the movie ended, I wasn't like, Jaby, I can't wait to go watch it again on Thursday. I was just like, that was great. That was really good fun. I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed a lot of the fan servicey things, a lot of old favorites and new characters and cuteness, and I was just like, that was a fun time. That was a fun 2.5 hours. Good job.
It was definitely a fun time. There were some moments that just made me so happy because of those call-out moments. Those, remember that from? I there was a lot of that, and I did enjoy that and appreciate it. I need to watch it a second time to really make sure that I've got my opinion settled because I was so caught off guard by that first hour moving at the pace that it did.
Yeah, it moves at a clip.
One tweet I read was, "This movie has a lot of movie in it," and I think that's a great way to summarize it. I feel this should have been 3 hours. I think we're comfortable.
Endgame was 3 hours.
Yeah, I think we're perfectly comfortable with longer films, and this it's the final installment in the saga. It deserved to be longer, and so to kind of cram all that into 2 hours and 20 minutes, I feel like is a disservice to the story itself that they want to tell here.
It's not like they haven't done 3-hour movies recently. We've had Endgame, we had The Irishman.
Yeah.
We will sit through 3 hours of movie if it is worth it to sit through 3 hours of movie. It did move very quickly in the beginning, and a lot of that was this very fast, quippy dialogue that they were doing, which didn't really feel like Star Wars. On its own, I enjoy it. I like that type of dialogue where actors are picking up each other's cues and kind of talking over each other, and it's really funny and quippy, and it does kind of feel reminiscent of a lot of the stuff that they do in Marvel movies. Mm-hmm. It was funny, but I was also just like, whoa, what movie am I watching? Is this Star Wars? It feels funny in a Star Wars movie.
It feels like the least Star Wars movie for the first hour. Now, there are people who will argue that Last Jedi feels like the least Star Wars film ever made.
Right.
But for me, the first hour of this definitely didn't feel like Star Wars. It felt like an action film. For most people, that'll be fine. For most people, they'll feel like it's a sensible update for Star Wars. But
Yeah,
for
I mean,
me,
it was still fun.
right. I kind of enjoyed some of the things that was done by Rian Johnson in episode 8, and so there was some undoing. I'm not gonna say what, of course, but I'm like, yeah, okay, well that's fine. I mean, it worked. J.J. Abrams did it in such a way that it worked. I'm keeping in mind the tall order that J.J. Abrams had when he embarked on this, because he didn't initially even want, from my understanding, he didn't initially even want to do The Force Awakens. He's like, I just did Star Trek. I don't want to do Star Wars as well. And so he was like, okay, fine, I'll do Star Wars, but I don't want to do all the Star Wars. So I'm going to do the first one, and then 2 other writers will do the other 2. Cool. Disney's like, cool. And then, stuff just wasn't working out quite like Disney had expected. And they're like, JJ, remember that deal we made?
Yeah, come back.
Get over here.
Come back.
You need to fix this mess that has been made in the bathroom. So
he's like the Star Wars janitor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, basically. I mean, that's kind of what it feels like. And so
He did a good job, though.
Yeah.
I thought.
No, he did a great, for all that he had to deal with and create a satisfying conclusion, I feel like he did a great job.
Yeah.
Like, with all that was in front of him. He had to course correct from episode 8, so he was doing some kitchen cleanup, right? And then on top of that, he had to tell a serviceable story.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to just make sure that the fans are happy. That's the biggest thing with this particular film, is just, he just wants to make sure he makes the fans happy. And I feel like for most of the hardcore people, this is going to be a film that makes them happy. Like, it's exactly what you would want this to do if you were a hardcore fan. The biggest thing I want to mention before I forget is that, Leia's inclusion in this was brilliant.
Yeah.
The way they did it, because it's all done with archive footage, at least according to IMDb. And it doesn't feel like that. So oftentimes when you are reviving people for the sake of another installment in a film, it really feels like you're doing that. It really feels like you're using archive footage. Like, the worst example of this is Game of Death with Bruce Lee, where it's like you got all this archive footage being used and doubles being used, and it's like, it really feels like it's being stitched together.
Right.
And most people won't agree with me when I say this, but I felt similarly about the 7th installment of Fast and Furious when they had to do Paul Walker. It's like, I could feel it being stitched together sometimes.
Right.
With this, I didn't get that sense at all. I could not detect the seams of how they managed to make this story work. And in that respect, it was brilliant. J.J. Abrams and his writers, his story people, they did a fantastic job of making that work cohesively. So overall, I thought, like, everything they wanted to do with the story, I thought was smart. My favorite thing about the film, actually, was the music. The music was wonderful.
It really was.
And it's like the best of hits for all the Star Wars music. Like, everything from the last 9 movies, or last 8 movies rather. I was like, oh wow, like, this is just wonderful music.
Yeah, as soon as it begins and like the title music comes on and it gets you all excited, and then various characters' themes start playing and you're like,
right.
Love. It supports the storytelling so well.
Right. There's a classical sense to it, and the example I want to provide is going to sound silly, but it's apt. In older films, especially with like composers with like John Williams, you'd have these things where an action would happen and music would go with that action, like very specifically. The most famous one I can think of is from Dr. No, where James Bond kills a spider and it goes bum, 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 and the music's going with his shoe, crushing the spider. And so there's something like that in this movie, and no one laughed. And I didn't laugh. I didn't think it was funny. It was like, it felt appropriate for the film.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments that felt like, this is classical. And I enjoyed that a lot. So I thought the music was great. It was just, everything was perfect there.
We can't forget the actors. I thought that the acting
I totally forgot about
really
the actors. Were there actors in this movie?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. The acting was great.
I really enjoyed it. I thought that, given the amount of time that they've all had with each other to work with each other and grow as an ensemble, I thought that, you got the sense that they were more comfortable as actors together, and also their characters were more comfortable. So there was this like easygoing rapport that I really enjoyed.
Overall, I loved the acting in the movie, but I didn't like John Boyega. I just didn't.
That's nothing new, though.
But I never felt as strongly before. This is the first time where I'm watching him going, I just don't like his acting here. And I couldn't we were with someone who was saying, well, what about this person? Was it you? Oh, you had mentioned someone's acting. And I'm like, I didn't even notice that because John Boyega took all the bad acting away. Like he did all of that for me because he was just, and he had moments, he had strong moments in the movie, don't get me wrong, like moments where he felt like a person, but there was a lot of moments where it was just like a lot of needless excitement the entire time. I'm like, dude, calm down. Like, seriously calm down. He was literally jumping up and down. And I'm like, they can hear you. Like, you need to calm down, guy. So he would be my one acting gripe in the movie. But outside of him, I thought the cast was phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's, for me, especially Adam Driver.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
I mean, he had, I don't want to say anything about specific, but he had a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
If you've seen anything, if you've seen any film since Roundhay, you pretty much get the beats of this film.
Oh.
Just, it's pretty predictable. I mean, it's sort of, I guess, what's going to happen with a final installment that's motivated purely by fan service. It's going to be predictable, and you're going to see where everything is going. And I mean, I did anyway.
I was a little bit surprised sometimes.
I was surprised by one or two moments, but overall I was like, oh, yeah. And I think that's why I came out of the theater going, it was fine. It was a serviceable film. And I think that there's a number of you who will call me crazy for saying that. You're going to come out, you're going to see this review, then you're going to go watch that movie and be like, oh my God, it was amazing. What's wrong with you, Jay? I get it. I understand. But I want to be real with you guys. I want to be honest, and that's my honest feeling. It was fine. It was a serviceable film. I will watch it again, but after I watch it in theaters again, I don't know that I will ever be compelled to see it again after that. We'll see. I might come back with a second review and be like, wow, I don't know what I was thinking. I was smoking crack the first time. Screw crack. I am totally, Star Wars is my new high. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Hopefully, yeah. I'm Jaby Koay. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.